What is happening, everybody? Ben Morgan, Fins Up Network, and we are talking edge rushers on today's position preview for the Miami Dolphins offseason, heading into the 2023 NFL season. Edge rusher, my favorite position to pay attention to on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, a premier position when we look at where teams want to spend a lot of their money, where they want to have studs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Right now, the way the NFL is, you're looking at cornerback and you're looking at edge rusher. And now we're going to look at Vic Fangio's system and say, man, we're going to try to be getting pressure with four more often than not, and more often than we have been in the last couple of years, running all those zero blitzes and bringing the house all the time. Well, now that position is 100% at the premium. So we're going to be looking at our guys from 2022, our current guys, our free agents, the rest of the free agents, and then the prospects in the 2023 NFL draft. So before we get started, in the comments, if you've got a free agent, if you've got a draft prospect, go ahead and drop your desired prospect or player in the comments. Curious to see who you would like added to the Miami Dolphins edge rusher position over the course of the offseason. But let's look at 22, the guys that we were rolling with here, because quite honestly, like I said, you want a premier position. And when you brought in Bradley Chubb at the trade deadline last season, you instantly said, you know what? Well, there's our first rounder for the year. We got our bookends right now. We're rolling with Jaelan Phillips. We're rolling with Bradley Chubb. Those are going to be our premier edge rushers. So anyone else that's not named Phillips or Chubb is likely in a backup role and or specific to a pass rushing situation. Those are your guys. Two former first-round picks. Those are the guys you're building this defense around. And quite honestly, Phillips was doing fine before Chubb arrived. Bradley Chubb arrived, and we saw a new version of Jaelan Phillips. And if you think back, I keep thinking about the episodes when the videos and we were talking about these two pass rushers and said, man, Bradley Chubb, even if his numbers aren't there, he is going to open so many things for Jaelan Phillips, because before Chubb arrived, Ogbo was inconsistent. He was playing hurt. He ended up being out. Phillips was getting double, triple teamed every single snap, every pass rushing snap, it felt like anyways. But man, Chubb opened the game for Jaelan Phillips. And if you look at ESPN's pass rush win rate, both of these guys finished in the top 10 for the 2022 NFL season. Phillips, I believe, was 4th, and Bradley Chubb was 10th. So those are your guys. Like I said, that's going to be the key of this position in 2023 and beyond. Obviously, we signed Chubb to that extension. You still got Phillips on his rookie deal. We got a 5th-year option for him when the time comes. So those are your guys. So then if you're rounding out the rest of the roster, especially from the 2022 squad, the main free agents that you're going to be looking at there, Melvin Ingram and Andrew Van Ginkel. And quite honestly, Melvin Ingram, given his age, and Andrew Van Ginkel, just kind of given his skill set, we shall say, he's been good, don't get me wrong, but he's more of a role player than an every down starter. These are the kind of guys that you could just bring back as free agents. So I wouldn't be surprised if one or both of these guys are back, if the defense doesn't want to change things up all that much. But the other name that you're going to see here is Emmanuel Ogbah. And it's an interesting name because we re-signed him to, I believe it was a 4-year extension. You got to give me 1 second so I can refresh my page to bring that back up there, since I talked about those guys longer than I had planned on. But if you're looking at Emmanuel Ogbah, we signed him in the 2022 offseason. It was like a 4-year deal, $50 or $60 million. So he was part of the plan. Well, obviously, he ends up getting hurt. Obviously, we bring in Bradley Chubb. Now, obviously, we have a bit of a surplus at the position. Depth is always key, and Ogbah does a lot of stuff that like Phillips and Chubb don't typically get called out for doing and stand out for doing, and that's setting the edge in the run game. But how much are we going to value Emmanuel Ogbah if that's what his primary duty is on this team? So I love him as depth. I love him as a player. He's been awesome ever since he's been with the Dolphins. I know he had a down year last year, but he had that injury he was battling through. But at the end of the day, you got to wonder if Ogbah's maybe a trade piece. If they can get rid of that salary, if they can add some draft capital, as we'll talk about here, we only got 5 picks coming up in the 2023 NFL draft. Watch for Emmanuel Ogbah's name to be floated around in trade rumors. Like I said, not that I'm out here asking for him to get dealt. I'm a huge Emmanuel Ogbah fan, but at the end of the day, it's a business. You got to do what's best for the now and for the foreseeable future. Because if Phillips and Chubb is your guy moving forward, if those are your bookends at edge rusher, then maybe, just maybe, you can get a little bit of return on Emmanuel Ogbah, get out of that contract in the process. So keep an eye out on that. Let's talk about those free agents that we kind of hinted to earlier. And I haven't honestly seen the Dolphins linked to really any of these guys that I personally like. I like Draymond Jones. Likely going to be one of the more expensive options. So obviously, with already having the guys that I talked about, with it being Phillips, with it being Chubb, he's probably dream scenario kind of guy, especially only at 26 years old. I do really like Marcus Davenport. His stats throughout his career with the Saints haven't quite been there. I loved him in college, was a big fan of him when he entered the draft a few years back. He's been a consistent player with the Saints. Like I said, nothing eye-popping, nothing that the stats are going to shout like, oh, this guy's a premier edge rusher. But he does a lot of the little things, and he's more of a consistent guy. And then one other guy that I kind of liked coming out of the draft as well, and he's popped around from a couple of teams now the last few years, but Chase Winovich. Obviously drafted by the Patriots. He got moved over to the Browns. He's now a free agent as well. But honestly, if you're looking at this free agent list, if you want to go with guys who you know you're going to get production from, guys that aren't going to be quite as expensive on the open market, you're looking at that Melvin Ingram, who's 33 years old, and you're looking at Andrew Van Ginkel. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, at the end of the day, we're going to make it or break it at edge of this year with Jaelan Phillips and with Bradley Chubb. So like I said, at this point in time, we're talking more depth guys. So I'm not thinking that we're going to see any splash signings in the free agency this year, but at least a couple of guys to keep your eye on. As we get into next month when free agency really starts, let's take a peek at some of these draft prospects here, because there are a couple of guys on this list that I do have my eye on. I'm going to probably do a couple of draft player profiles on, because if you look at the edge rusher position, we talked about it already. It's a premier position that is huge in the NFL, and it gets bumped up draft boards throughout the entire NFL. Every damn team wants more edge rushers. There's no secret about it. Like I said, premier position. Everyone wants to get their hands on a good guy. And I've got good account of the Dolphins' interest in one of these guys in particular, and it kind of falls in that range where the Dolphins are actually going to be picking. Like you see there, in the second, we pick 51. In the third, we got 77 and 84. And then we've got the sixth and the seventh rounders. But that guy that you're looking at with one of those first three picks, Andre Carter out of Army. And yes, I am going to do another draft player profile on him, specifically an entire video that's dedicated to him. That'll be coming out as we get closer to draft season. But man, if you look at him, just a kind of a quick glimpse into Andre Carter, the dude is a monster, an athletic monster. He's like 6'7". He kind of has a little bit of that Jason Taylor to him, but he's raw. He is just super raw. He's actually new to the defensive side of the ball. We did see a dip in production in 2022 while he was at Army. But man, he has got that size. He's got that athleticism that the NFL teams are just going to crave, and he's not going to slip too far. At one point, a lot of people even thought he was going to be a first-round prospect. So keep your eye on him as well. And like I said, I'll be doing a player profile on him as we get closer to the NFL draft. But man, if you look at that, these are kind of just based on projections, but 13 guys projected off the board in the first three rounds. So man, just I don't want to call it an outright loaded class. It is a pretty damn good class, but man, we see these guys pushed up draft boards every single year because of the position that they play. But to wrap this one up, like I said, this unit is obviously going to be led in 2023 and beyond. In a perfect world, no crazy injuries. Bradley Chubb, Jaelan Phillips. That is your calling card. And like I said, let's keep our eye on Emmanuel Ogbah. I don't want to see him go. I really like Emmanuel Ogbah. He does a lot of the dirty things. Think about all the batted passes that he's had over his limited career with the Dolphins. How many times he's set the edge and made a tackle, or set up a tackle for one of the linebackers as well. Oh, and plus, yeah, he was getting 8-9 sacks there for a couple of years as well. So the dude can get it done. I'd hate to see him go. NFL's a business, though. We spent all that capital on Bradley Chubb. We ended up paying him big bucks. At a certain point in time, you can't have too much money loaded up into one position. So keep an eye on that. And like I said, keep an eye on re-signing the in-house options, whether that's Van Ginkel, whether that's Melvin Ingram. Those are a couple of names that, yes, they're going to be free agents. They've got the ties to the Dolphins, and the Dolphins know what they're getting in those players. And then in the draft, just to recap, Andre Carter. Keep an eye out on that name. I'll be doing profiles on other guys as well, but that's one I definitely think in the meantime, do a little homework on, because that guy is an athletic freak that scouts have been drooling over and NFL teams are going to want to get their hands on. A guy like Vic Fangio, like, what can I do with this guy? Just another chess piece. What can I do to make him be another addition, another chess piece in my defense? So that's what I have got for edge rusher preview for this offseason. Dolphins fans, go ahead, drop your top free agent, drop your top draft prospect, whatever you've got for the position. Go ahead, put that in the comments. Let's talk more about it then. That's my time for the day, though, Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.